Have you ever wanted to see a nation's entire future laid out right there on paper? Well, that's exactly what we're doing today. We are diving into the Sri Lanka Navy's brand new master plan, NAVSTRAT-2030. This is the playbook for one of the most strategically important navies in the world, right in the heart of the action in the Indo-Pacific.
You see, Sri Lanka's location is everything. It sits at this critical crossroads for global trade and energy in the Indian Ocean. Now, that's a huge advantage, for sure. But here's the catch. It also puts the country on the front lines of, well, an ocean of modern complex challenges, all while major powers are competing for influence right on its doorstep.
And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, the patch of ocean Sri Lanka is responsible for protecting, its exclusive economic zone, is a massive 8 times bigger than its own landmass. Think about that. Managing that much water isn't just a job. It's a monumental task that really defines its national security. All right, let's get into it.
Okay, first up, to really get where the Sri Lankan Navy is going, we've got to understand where it's been. This first section is all about the history and the new kinds of threats that make this 2030 strategy so incredibly important right now. So the Sri Lanka Navy has this really tough, fascinating history. It went from a small volunteer force to a truly battle-hardened service that was absolutely key to ending a long, brutal civil war. But what's so interesting here is the story of adaptation this timeline tells. It shows a major pivot. Because let's be honest, the ships, the skills, and the whole mindset you need to fight an insurgency in your own coastal waters, it's completely different from what's needed today. Right, so with that conflict over, the Navy's focus has shifted to what military planners call non-traditional threats. So think less about big naval battles between countries and more about these messy, complex criminal networks and environmental dangers that just thrive out there in the gray zones of the open ocean. And this slide, wow, it really lays out what that new battlefield looks like. It's not about fighting enemy fleets anymore. It's about chasing down drug smugglers on what's known as the Southern Route. It's about tackling huge illegal fishing operations that steal a country's resources. And it's about responding to disasters like massive oil spills. This is the day-to-day reality that this new strategy is built to deal with. So knowing those are the threats, what is this strategy actually trying to accomplish? Let's get into the ends. These are the big picture goals, the ultimate objectives that are going to drive every single decision the Navy makes for the next decade. The commander of the Navy himself really sets the tone perfectly here. The key word is proactive. This isn't about just sitting around and waiting for crises to happen. The whole point is to get ahead of the curve, to anticipate challenges and have a plan ready to go before things get out of hand. And here's the bottom line. This isn't just a plan for the Navy, it's a plan for the entire nation. Every single one of these goals, from keeping trade routes safe to building friendships with other countries, directly connects the Navy's work to the economic health and security of all of Sri Lanka. All right, so we know the what. Now we get to the how. This section is all about the ways, the actual specific actions the Navy is going to take to make those big goals a reality out on the water. But before we get to the plan, we have to understand this term, SLOCs. For an island nation sitting smack in the middle of the Indo-Pacific, these sea lanes are its economic lifelines. They are the arteries of global trade. We're talking more than half of all the world's container ships, and something like 70% of oil shipments passing through its waters. Protecting them isn't just a local issue, it's a global one. The whole strategy really rests on these 4 powerful pillars, and it's a really smart, comprehensive approach. First, you modernize your tools. Then you improve your vision. Because, hey, you can't secure what you can't see. Third, you team up with partners, because nobody can do this alone. And finally, you make it crystal clear who does what to be as efficient as possible. And honestly, this slide might be one of the most important in the whole deck. It creates this super sharp, clear division of labor. The Navy, the SLN, they focus on the big national security stuff, way out in the deep blue water ocean. Meanwhile, the Coast Guard handles the law enforcement, the constabulary role, closer to shore. This way, they're not stepping on each other's toes. You get 2 specialized, super efficient forces. So we've got the goals and we've got the plan. Now let's look at the fun stuff, the means, the ships, the tech, and the people that are actually going to get this job done. Okay, so here's a quick look at the fleet as of 2023. You can see right away it's a force with a lot of smaller, fast boats. A fleet that was perfectly designed for those coastal counterinsurgency fights of the past. But the future? Well, the future demands a totally different kind of Navy, one with a much, much longer reach. And here it is. This is the vision for that future.
The strategy calls for a big shift towards larger, more capable ships like frigates and corvettes. It wants more and better offshore patrol vessels for those long-range missions. And, critically, it's about bringing in unmanned systems like drones. This isn't just an upgrade, folks. This is a transformation into a true blue water navy that can project stability far from its own shores. But, the document is really clear about this. A modern navy is so much more than just steel hulls. The real muscle comes from investing in highly trained people, building a culture of innovation, and having rock-solid cybersecurity to protect this new, high-tech force from all those 21st century threats. All right, let's pull all these threads together. What does this huge strategic shift actually mean for Sri Lanka, and really for the entire Indian Ocean region, as we look ahead 2030 and beyond? This chart just nails it. The Navy's mission has evolved. It went from an internal counterinsurgency fight to its current job of basically being the police on the water, and now to where it's headed. The future, as this strategy sees it, is about becoming a major player in regional security and a tool for diplomacy, a stabilizing middle power in a sea full of giants. So what's the big takeaway here? The ultimate goal is to build a navy that's balanced, modern, and agile enough to handle anything from pirates to pollution, all while protecting Sri Lanka's prosperity and acting as a reliable, independent partner for stability in a very, very busy ocean. And all of this leaves us with one final, crucial question to think about. As the big global powers compete for influence across the Indo-Pacific, a strategy like this isn't just about ships and security. It's really about how a nation in a critical location can chart its own independent course through the very turbulent waters of the 21st century.